So let me get this straight. One of the Maltos is a gadgeteer genius, and one of the Maltos is the surrogate child of Wheeljack, and they aren't the same character? I don't know what's more confusing, that or the fact that I have to use Prime Wheeljack for this shot. It is Pride Month once again, folks. After last year's double feature covered Rewind and Chrome Dome, I figured this year I should give the spotlight to the oft-neglected T in LGBT. So today, I'll be taking a look at the deluxe class Nightshade toy from Transformers EarthSpark, the first non-binary Transformer to appear on television, and my personal favorite Terran. There's just something about them that resonates with me, even as someone who's always been more than comfortable with my birth-assigned gender. I think it's the fact that despite them being the gadgeteer genius, they still have a childlike sense of wonder and fantasy to them. They're not just the token inclusion some people accuse them of being, they're genuinely one of the most fleshed out characters in Transformers, and they just so happen to be proud of their gender identity. So yeah, this toy's got a lot to live up to. Let's see how well it pulls it off. Nightshade transforms into a robotic hawk owl. Well, technically an owl statue, but that's a bit of a rabbit hole. Go watch the episode Misconnection if you want the full story of their alt mode. Anyways, the owl mode doesn't really look all that great. The front of the owl is clearly just the robot arms folded up over the chest with no attempt made to hide them. And going around to the side, there's an obvious gap where the arms meet the legs. Ironically, the only angle where anything looks cohesive is the back. At least there, the legs flow together to create the shape of the owl body. But even then, there's a massive gap between the legs where you can see the robot head peeking out. I get it, it's a difficult design to translate, and the toy has a limited budget. But I feel like this could have been done at least a little better. It's unfortunate, because where there was room for detail, they clearly put a lot of work into it. Each of their wing segments is molded and painted on both sides of the wing. And if you can look past the robot shoulders, the feathers around their neck are molded in as well. The owl head looks really good too. The shiny emerald paint really pops against the base dark green plastic. And the black paint around the eyes makes the yellow paint look even more vivid. The owl mode genuinely looks good in all the areas that it's allowed to. As for articulation in this mode, the figure does pretty well. The neck is on a swivel, so you can get them going full owl head on you. The wings are on ball joints at the base, with a second hinge for good measure. Though I think they kind of missed a trick here, since the hinges bend in the same direction as the cut of the ball joint, which makes them a little redundant. I think it would have made more sense to give them more range in the opposite direction, so you can pose them flapping their wings. The legs are hinged where they meet the body, but you can't really use that joint for much posing, as they need to be standing on both feet to balance properly. But regardless, I think the neck and wings are more than enough for posability. It helps that with the wings folded down, you can't see as much of the messiness on the sides. And that's pretty much all you get out of the owl mode. It's kind of disappointing, really. I can tell that the designers are trying their best to make this work, but even that just wasn't enough. I don't know how much harder or more expensive it would have been to clean this up, but I really wish they could have pulled it off. As it is, it's kind of hard to defend. Being a mainline toy, the transformation is fairly simplistic. The back section of the owl untabs and unfolds into the legs, the chest of the owl splits to form the arms, and the owl head flips around to reveal the robot head. I like how the back of the owl head comes out the front to form the chest at least. That's a neat trick. But after that, it's just a matter of arranging the kibble. Fold the talons up onto their forearms, and position the wings however you like. That's basically it. I'll give it this, the profile changes a lot given how little is happening. But at the same time, it feels a little underwhelming. Honestly, Nightshade's robot mode almost makes the lackluster owl mode worth it. While not entirely screen accurate, this figure does capture the same sleek and smooth aesthetic they have in the show. Of course, the massive wings hanging off of their back kind of interferes with that. Funnily enough, the bulk of the wing is actually packed separately and has to be attached manually. And it's just held on with friction pegs, so you can theoretically just take them off to create a more normal look. But they are made of a soft plastic, so doing this too often can apparently damage the connections. That aside, there is some pretty good detail work going on. I like how the shoulder pads are shaped to evoke the chest shield they had in the show. The feather details on the forearms are pretty cool too. And while the engineering of the torso prevents them from actually having the chest shield, the star emblem on their chest is fully molded and painted, as is most of the belt detail. The head sculpt is pretty nice too. It seems the designers have interpreted Nightshade's large head crest as a pair of giant ears, which is weird, but it looks nice on them. The face, however, is a little odd. The eyes are so big and round that they almost look high, especially compared to the show model, where the green part of their eyes is more like a pupil or an iris. Also, they have that sort of puppet mouth thing going on, where there are these random lines extending from the corners of their mouth into their helmet, which looks a little uncanny. But those are minor details that you only really notice up close. In most poses, the face sculpt is more than passable, and even pretty expressive. That said, they're looking pretty gray. In the animation, Nightshade is almost entirely two-tone green, with only small hits of silver as accent details. On the toy, gray is basically their secondary color. Meanwhile, the emerald paint that's supposed to be their actual secondary color is reduced to an accent color. It's kind of weird how that happened. They don't look bad like this, but I feel like the color scheme here comes off a little bit drab in comparison. That said, the Takara Tomy release of this toy casts them in much more show-accurate colors, so if you have a few extra bucks to spare, that's always an option. For as relatively cheap as this figure is, they have plenty of articulation. The neck is on a ball joint, though they can't really look up that far. The shoulders are on ball joints and are cut for full outward motion. The biceps swivel and the elbows can bend to 90 degrees. No wrist swivel though. No waist swivel either, though you can use the transformation joint to give them a backwards lean. The hips are on ball joints, but can only move out by around 45 degrees. There's a swivel above the knee, and the knees themselves can bend all the way to 180. The ankles can pivot inwards quite a ways, and there's even some play in the transformation joints. So you can get a shocking number of poses out of them, especially if you know how to work the feet. Stored on top of Nightshade's wings, you'll find their accessories, a pair of hunting knives. I have no idea why they thought to include these, considering that they feel a little brutal for the character. But I guess they turn into a predatory bird, so there's some logic there. Regardless, the knives look alright in their hands. And there is actually clearance for them to hold the knives in reverse grip if that suits you. And given the range of articulation, you can get them into some pretty cool poses with them. Oh, and real quick, I just want to acknowledge that yes, this toy does come with a Build-A-Figure piece. But considering that it doesn't add much value to the set on its own, I will not be discussing it in any sort of depth. Especially since that piece was omitted from the second release. Maybe if I get all the parts, I'll give my thoughts on the completed figure, but for now it's basically superfluous. I'm trying not to be too harsh on this toy, I really am. I realize that this is being made for a younger demographic and doesn't have the same budget that a Generations toy has. But at the same time, I think there's room for legitimate criticism even with a cheaper toy for kids. So I feel fully justified in saying that the owl mode really drags the figure down for me. I think there should have been a way to make that mode look cleaner. As much as I enjoy a simple but effective transformation, I feel like there was room in the process to integrate the robot mask better. This figure really does live and die by its robot mode. And I'll give them this, the robot mode is really nice, especially if you get the Takara version. But judging the figure as a whole, Nightshade really deserves better. So what's my verdict? Well, I would recommend picking this toy up if you're a fan of the character. They really are fun to mess around with and look great on a shelf, especially if you have any of the other Terrans to pose them next to. But if you're just looking for a good Transformer, there are better options out there, even in this line. Hopefully someday Nightshade will get a toy that truly fits the character. But until then, I guess this isn't bad. You got a word for one, so there's a word for all. The smallest things have become. Which side are you on? What if I don't want something that applies to me? What if there's no better word than just not saying anything, anything? You are fighting between a rock and why bother? We are floating between two ends that don't